So the next talk will be by Anton Osokin, who is a postdoc at INRIA École Supérieure, non-lecture group again. Anton has got his PhD from Moscow State University, from CMC department, with Rivetros group. And after that has moved to India. He's now working on deep learning for detecting different things. And today it will be about video and people. Over to you.
Yes, hi everyone. Do we have any non-Russian speaker in the room? No.
Yes, there is one.
Yes, okay. Then let's talk in English. Okay, so as Vita said, I'm going to talk about detection, and this will be about detection in video. So we have person in the title, but it's not going to be like very specific to people, just we didn't have time to run it on non-people data set. That's why it's about people. Okay, so basically the classic task of object detection. As input we are given an image, and the goal is to put a bounding box on the object of interest. Here, like objects of interest are all human heads. So this data is coming from videos, and actually it's very strange not to actually use video information. And intuitively, it's quite clear that using video information can help a lot. So basically, why using videos? What can video give us to improve the detection results? So first, like within time, scores and object positions provided by detectors are usually not stable, and video can help us to smooth this out. Like what specifically can video do to help? So like first, video can allow to fill in the gaps. If at some point some detection is missing, then video allows to recover a box there. Then video can give an opportunity to smooth the object location. For example, here the box is present, but the localization is not very precise. If we use the video information, we can smooth it out. The last thing that video can do, the last thing I mentioned on this slide, is to remove false positive. Because accidentally, detectors fire sometimes somewhere in the background, and removing those can be done by using video. Okay, so basically, how do we actually use video? What can we do? So probably the most popular approach, what people do most often, is use something called tracking by detection. So basically, we run a detector in each frame, and then we run a tracker, which is a procedure that allows to connect detections in multiple frames. So this approach is a very big field on its own. There are a lot of different methods, so it's a bit hard to criticize it. But I'm not a tracking person, so I can say that trackers don't always work too well. For example, when temporal continuity of an object is broken, basically when there is strong occlusion or there is a fast motion, then trackers sometimes fail. Sometimes they do well, but sometimes they fail. Also, trackings are often very expensive, and they often require some extra input, extra low-level input computed from the image. For example, they might need optical flow or some point tracks, and those are usually complicated. So basically, in our approach, we don't want to use tracking. We want to stay within CNN and do something end-to-end, one system, but to use video information. So basically, our idea is to use, instead of single-frame bounding boxes, we want to use spatial temporal tubes as elementary units for detection. So basically, we have a spatial temporal tube which spans multiple frames, and we want to deal with these things, with this tube as units. So basically, there is a hope that such tubes, they can capture temporal evolution of object appearance, and second, that they can be robust against strong occlusions and can actually give us all the benefits of using the video. Also, the biggest issue with such tubes is that they might be hard to parameterize because there are too many possibilities. But fortunately, if we are talking about short time intervals, then tubes corresponding to realistic motions, are almost linear, and then parameterizing is easy. So we can just specify the box on the first frame and the box on the last frame, and that gives us a tube. Okay, so it's very easy to guess nowadays. I'm going to use CNN for everything. So basically, we are going to build on the pipeline started by RCNN, fast RCNN and faster RCNN, and we are going to do like essentially the same thing but for video. And we're going to do that with spatial temporal tubes instead of object bounding boxes. So basically, the first starting point is RCNN. So here, the main idea is to take regions, to take proposals, box proposals from an image, and to classify them, these proposals, and at the same time to adjust localization, improve localization. So basically, nowadays no one uses RCNN anymore because it's slow. So basically, but there is fast RCNN. Here, like the main idea was to share like computations between different proposals and to push the image through one bank of convolutional filters, and then perform pooling operations on the feature maps. However, the last related work I want to mention is faster RCNN, which appeared roughly at the same time. But here the main idea is to generate proposals from the network itself and not to do the expensive step of proposal generation in advance. So basically, I'm going to generalize exactly like these three works, but for the case of spatial temporal tubes and for video. So basically, I need two steps. First step is to generate these two proposals, to get them from somewhere. I'm going to get them from the network, easy to guess. And then I will be classifying these two proposals and improving their localization. So basically, for the first step, we have something we call a tube proposal network. Like here, we call it TPN because there is RPN, which is a rigid proposal network. So all our stuff will be called roughly like this. So this is a neural network which takes a chunk of images as input, then it produces a set of tube proposals. If you know like what rigid proposal network does, you won't be surprised with any of the details. I'll give a bit of details later. So to do the second step, to classify the tube proposals, we use a model which we call like tube CNN. TCNN unfortunately was occupied already. So basically, like this thing takes as input chunk of images and like a set of tube proposals. Then it merges everything together and gives tube-to-tube detection. So basically, it gives the score representing the likelihood for seeing the object at this tube and improves the localization. Now I'll say a few words about the architectures and the details how this method, what these models do. So first, the tube proposal networks. So basically, as input, we take a chunk of images. Like here, like t is the number of frames we used. Okay, in our experiments, at the end of the day, we use t equals 10. So you can think of this as like short chunks of 10 frames. Then there is a CNN feature extractor. Here, like for this one, we tried AlexNet and VGG. And after we do this, we get a feature volume with a reduced resolution. And here, like, we exactly like follow the approach of rigid proposal network. So basically, we had some seed locations, and for each location there are anchors, and for each anchor we have two heads. So we have a head representing objectness, which is the detection score because we have just one class, and we have a regression head, which improves the localization. For like objectness or the detection head, we have a cross entropy loss. For regression, like we have two parts. One part is for the starting frame, second part is for the end frame, and we have smooth and one loss like for like both of those. Okay. So basically, like here, like one of the like interesting questions is like which anchors to use, because in original, in case of rigid proposal network for a single frame, they vary scales and aspect ratios. And here, like we have video, so like we might want to use more. However, like in our experiment, we found it's enough only to vary scales. So actually, we don't need aspect ratios, probably because we have heads, and heads are almost square, so we don't need very rectangular proposals. And also, like we've tried adding offsets, like horizontal, vertical offsets for motion, but it didn't help. So it turned out that having regression terms that can improve localization just is enough to get non-straight tubes, non-straight proposals. Okay, so that's it about like tube proposal network. Now tube CNN. So tube CNN is closer to the end of the pipeline, so we like spend more time on this, and also I'll have more slides on tube CNN. So basically here as input we have chunk of images, then we have CNN feature extractor, which gives like a feature volume. Then we have tube proposals, and we do something that we call like tube of interest pooling in the feature volume. So this is exact generalization of region of interest pooling for the case of frames. So we've tried like several things, like doing temporal max pooling, doing temporal average pooling, adding 3D convolutions there, but surprisingly just simple max pooling temporal worked best. And on top of this tube of interest pooling, we have classification branches and regression branches. For classification branches, it's supposed to say whether the object is there or not, and then there are two regression branches, and they improve the localization of the two ends of the tube. So again, here there is a cross-centric loss on top, and here there is a smooth L1 loss on top. So basically, we've tried like several architectures for tube CNN. So we've tried to stay as close as possible to existing networks, not to invent something new. So the first thing we did was like CatNet, which is roughly AlexNet. So basically, we cut it exactly in the same place as people cut for still image detectors, and like insert pooling there. But like this network works well, but not the best. So the next thing we do is of course like take a bigger network. So we take ResNet 101 was the biggest one we had access to at the moment. So here again, like we cut it in two pieces. One piece is called the convolution of feature extractor and gives us the feature volume. Then there is like tube of interest pooling. It's exactly at the same spot where they insert region of interest pooling, and then there is the rest of the network. So we've experimented a bit with the specialized networks for video, which are based on 3D convolutions, but those didn't work that well. And maybe it's possible to make them work better, but like we didn't want to train base networks. Okay, so now for training, like given all these architectures, I just want to emphasize like one trick which helped us a lot to train them better. So this is like hard negative mining. All the rest is exactly the same as people usually do for still image detection, but like surprisingly hard negative mining gave us like a huge boost. So basically, hard negative mining consists in passing a lot of proposals like through the network, getting scores for them, then selecting the ones where network makes mistakes, and then training on those ones with mistakes. So basically, like we observed that doing a few iterations of hard negative mining on top of, like after the regular training, helps a lot. And it was like effective for all models. So basically to train all the models, we use tubes with 10 frames. So basically those are like short enough to preserve linear tube assumption and long enough to deal with occlusions a bit. But the truth is that we've tried like 5, 15, and 20, and 10, and 10 worked best. So we hope that those are the reasons why this is the case. And to train everything, we use Hollywood head dataset, which is a dataset actual recognition datasets, but as a byproduct, they annotated human heads, tracks of human heads in a lot of movies. So basically, overall, there are 21 movies with over like 300,000 frames. So there are 15 movies for training, 3 movies for validation, and 3 movies for testing. And both human tracks for heads of all major characters are annotated. Okay, so now I'll pass to evaluation. So there are like 2 parts of evaluation. One is evaluation of proposals, proposal network, and second part is evaluation of detection. So basically, to analyze the proposals, we do what people do for rigid proposals. We analyze look at recall. So basically, we look at 2 recalls. There is a frame level recall and chunk level recall. Frame level recall is simply the percentage of ground truth boxes that are covered by our detections at the certain overlap ratio. We use Pascal standard 0.5 overlap. Because we are working with tubes, we also wanted to look at the video level recall. So basically, we define a tube overlap ratio, which is basically minimum overlaps between the start of the tube and the end of the tube. And we chunk level recall is the overlap, is the percentage of tubes, ground truth tubes covered with this ratio. Okay, so basically we compare to this to some baselines, of course. So first run some existing proposal methods. Those usually come from action recognition literature and are based on motion and are specified, specifically designed for action recognition. So surprisingly, not surprisingly, they don't really work well for head detection. Maybe there is not that much motion in heads, they just don't cover heads. Then we do two baselines of our own. So first one is a selective search run on every frame plus QLT track on top of each box. We also for all these QLT tracks we cluster where the box can go. I think we use 4 clusters, and then for each box of selective search we add 4 tube proposals. Another thing what we do is to have box detections which are already coming from our detector on a single frame, and then do QLT on both to hypothesize where the object would go and give recall. So here recall is much better. But it's a bit hard to work with these proposals because number of proposals is huge. So if we have less proposals, recall drops dramatically. So if we compare this to TPN, TPN is better both in terms of recall and in terms of the number of proposals. For example, if you take all TPN proposals, which are 5K as well, which are quite a lot, you get an interesting number of 99% of recall for box recall. But surprisingly, TPN rank these proposals very well, and if you take only 500 or even 100 proposals, numbers for recall are still reasonable. And for these systems, number of proposals is directly corresponds to test time runtime. So it's going to be very. We would prefer to have as few proposals as possible. Okay, so now this is TPN proposals. Now I'll speak about evaluating detection. So to be able to compare the system with single frame systems, we evaluate on the keyframes. So there is a sparse set of keyframes where we have ground truth annotation. So for each keyframe, we select all chunks of frame that intersect with these keyframes, and then project detections on those chunks on the keyframe. So for the test set, for the next few slides, I will be using Hollywood Head's test set. So there are over 1,000 test frames. So basically, for this data set, I'll try to go through all the modifications we did and to show what are the benefits of each of those. So we started with CAF&NET, on still image, on just single frame detector. So basically here the performance is comparable to the state of the art of 2 years ago, or 1 year ago. But the first thing we did is of course taking a bigger network. So here there is a significant boost. Well, that does not surprise anyone, but bigger networks are better. So on top of that, we did hard negative mining. So here the boost was quite significant, and specifically for the model with big network, with ResNet. So this might be caused by the fact that we didn't train this one too long enough. So we cannot train forever, and not Google. So hard negative mining allows us to boost the performance a lot. So this line doesn't use video information in any way. So to get a stronger baseline, we add QLT tracking on top. We smooth out the detection results. So it always helps when we get a few percent boost out of video. And in the end of the day, we use our tube CNNs, and we see those are also using video information, and video information helps a bit better than tracking. So here, it's of course a bit overclaiming to say that we work better than tracking, because we've compared against two different tracking methods. Second one didn't work at all, but still there is improvement. So basically, to compare a bit to the state of the art again. So this was the state of the art on the two data sets, Hollywood Heads and Casablanca, which is another data set where there are videos and annotation on keyframes, annotation for detection. So basically we get here the numbers. I think this is not a typo, Oh, it is. No, this is not a typo. So basically, like if we take the still image detector, which is a box in, and get like around like 10% out of all. So this is ResNet and this is hard negative mining. Then when we add tracks, like we get a boost, and like if you substitute tracks with tubes, like this looks even better. So our numbers are getting a bit too high, so it gets a bit complicated to reason about the real performance of the system, because like, actually like most of the examples are easy and nothing happens. So there is just one guy talking, and like it's quite easy to detect that. So we, like out of our tests, out on the Hollywood heads dataset, we automatically mine like, what we call a hard test set. So basically those are like situations where like heads occlude each other. So basically, like we didn't want to do anything manually here, so we did everything based on the overlap ratios between ground truth tracks. So overall, with the selection of the thresholds, we were able to get 266 clips where like, there are like heavy occlusions of the heads. So basically, like here, like those are the results from this data set. So all the results go down. Like so, like there is a line of 50%, which is interesting because usually there are like two people. One people is seen, one person is visible, one person is not. So if the result is the recall is 50%, we detect only the visible person and don't detect the one which is not visible. So basically, like for single frame, performance is at 55, and like those two lines add use video information. So boost is bigger. It's not like 2%, it's like 7% here. And also, again, like tubes work a bit better than tracking. Like to give like a bit of qualitative results, like what method does, what it actually can detect at the end of the day, those are some results. Basically, here like there is like a heavy occlusion. Here there is like a 100% occlusion of one guy against another. Like here there is a motion. And also, like for example, this example is kind of complicated because there is a fast motion and tree is occluding the guy. Okay. So, however, like still, like tubes are not ideal. So there are like some cases which are like, very hard. Like here, I want to show like 3 cases that where like, it's hard for us to do anything for now. So one case is like long time occlusion. So we are using tubes of length of 10 frames. So basically, if the occlusion is longer than 10 frames, we don't have tubes that see like both ends. And then it's kind of hopeless. We are like again in the situation with a like still image detection. Second example is of course like always very hard for crowded scenes. Like hard for detection is the crowded scenes. Like annotation is very messy here. It's even a question whether it makes sense to do detection on such a scene. And the last case is the complex motion. This usually appears like in some fighting scenes. So here annotation is actually right, but like detecting this guy, the second guy, is complicated. You see like a head once and then it's just not there. So if I show you just still image, it might be like complicated, like in some point of views. Okay, so basically I'm almost done. This is the summary slide. So like first, like some recommendation what to do if you want to do like object detection. Of course, like the first one is to take a big base network. It comes with technical complications, but well, that's life. It works. For example, we used ResNet, and there was a big difference. But then, surprisingly, well, hard negative mining should be used, especially if you don't have infinite computational resources and cannot train forever. It can speed things up. Second point is about objects, more specific about video. So basically, like tracking works, like video information improves detection, and like tubes are a bit better until, unless if you're not a tracking expert and don't want to use like super complicated tracking, then tubes might be the choice. And for future work, like we would want to do like longer tubes to be able to deal with long time occlusions. See, like there is an issue that long motions are not linear, so we have to do something with it. And that we might want to explore non-linear parameterizations. For example, piecewise linear tube consists of two linear chunks with one breakpoint in the middle. This might still be like easy, feasible to parameterize, but already give us more flexibility. And of course, like what we want to do with the general object classes and like run this on ImageNet video detection dataset. But for now, like it's still work in progress. All our GPUs in the Christmas time are like running that, but it's slow. Okay, so basically that's it. Thanks a lot. Yes.
So your shoes are kind of flying near. So can you probably same accuracy if you run your detector per frame, but you probably come up with some prior over proposals or regions for the next frame based on the previous one.
So in some sense, like tracking-based methods do that. So there is a detector on each frame, and then like they have this result, and then they try to like work with this result. There is, for example, with our like QLT track, like where QLT tracks go somewhere, and this gives you like a prior, like where the object could go.
So the detector itself, it uses the information about the previous.
No.
No.
No. So basically, like.
But if you do.
Or.
I mean, your tube is kind of direction of an object, right? And it kind of gives you a prior where you should search for an object on the next frame. And you can probably estimate this direction based on the previous 10 frames, right?
Okay,
and
yes.
Just manually, without kind of learning. I mean, it will be a direction that you kind of put a prior over this direction.
Well, I think I see what you mean. Yes, something like this probably that could be done. It's probably not what we are doing, but it's related. It might be better, might be worse. Like it needs to be tried. So I guess like maybe some of the tracking papers do that, but I haven't seen like anything like close enough to what we are doing. So.
Questions?
What is the performance test time? How many frames actually can be tested?
That's a complicated question. Okay, so I won't tell you a number because I don't know, but I can compare it to the like single frame detector. So like say that we're talking about we're using the same base network, which is like ResNet, and then kind of running this thing. If you already like have proposals, then running the single frame detector on like 10 frames is roughly the same as running our detector on one channel of 10 frames. So basically, like if you don't want to do like overlapping chunks temporarily, then like performance would be the same. But however, like to get these proposals, like if you don't use TPN, you need to do like something. For example, like one of our baselines was selective search plus QLT tracks, and that is like super slow, like in terms of CPU time. So that needs to be run on all videos, and that's our clustering took a hit to do that. But like that's the point of doing everything from a network. So we are using a GPU, and like that's all we need. We don't need recombinations. Yes.
Okay, last question.
What's your expectation about the tube size? So 10 is the best for you now, yeah? And
yes.
It looks like if you take more, you should perform better, but probably it's because of the linear model, yeah?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, of course. So basically here, like, it will be like a bit like a chicken and egg issue. If you have like very long perfect cubes, then they already solve tracking. Like we have tracks, so like, we don't need to do anything else. So probably like going a bit longer might help, like maybe like 20 frames. But also like the longer we get, like the more non-linear cube becomes, and we like parameterization needs to be more complicated, and then we like everything it gets complicated. So I'd say like with piecewise linear thing, with piecewise linear parameterization, going beyond like 2 or 3 pieces might be like too heavy. Yes.
So as I understood, your approach would not work that well for some dynamic things like boxing or something like that.
So which things?
Like boxing or some kind of different sports where like the person shape of because these cubes.
Well, even like 10 frames is half a second. So like like even fast motions are usually linear, like in half a second. So, and if the motion is kind of linear, then our approach could work. Of course, like dynamic scenes are more complicated, yes, but this is true like for any method we use.
However, it will work more or less well like for bounding boxes, for segmentation, for instance.
Well, they don't do here segmentation, so I don't know.
Okay. So I think we need to carry on. Thanks a lot.